Priorities International, as she is working as Secretary General, and she invested lots of time and action to create this, to make this SideEvent possible. Mrs. Amesbauer, she worked as physiotherapist, she has 5 girls, and is very busy woman. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria Riehl. I'm Renate Amesbauer, and it is a great honor and pleasure that we can bring you all together to the topic creating supportive environment for a healthy development of our young people. Because you're either mothers or grandmothers, and it's our desire that youth has a safe space to grow up. We need time to grow, we need time to develop our personality, and we need the supporting surrounding. One is the family, but the next is the schools and all the community around. So we are very grateful for all our school sponsors who are here today. And I will be very brief with the introductions because the time is very short and everybody has to say so much. So our first speaker is not with you, it is Miss Moriko Hori. She is the President of Women Federation International and also President of Women Federation Japan, and they are supporting more than 100 projects in 50 countries. It's empowering women, it's schools for children, it's helping to get a job training in this area, and she sent us a welcome video, so we will watch the video now.
Distinguished Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to present the overseas project of Women's Federation Japan and their contribution to crime prevention. As highlighted in the World Drug Report, the misuse of narcotic drugs continues to rise globally, along with drug-related deaths. Young people are particularly vulnerable. During adolescence and early adulthood, when brain development continues until approximately age 25 to 27, youth are navigating identity, peer influence, and expanding social environments. Without strong protective factors, they are at greater risk of substance abuse and related crime activity. Related criminal activity. At Women's Federation Japan, we believe that effective crime prevention must address root causes. Law enforcement is essential, but prevention begins much earlier, in the family, in education, and in the community. Allow me to share several examples from our overseas project. First, in Jordan, Women's Federation Japan has supported youth development initiatives that focus on character education, leadership training, and value-based learning. In vulnerable communities, including areas affected by economic hardship and displacement, young people often face limited opportunity and social instability. Such conditions can increase susceptibility to delinquency and drug-related activity. Through workshops, mentoring programs, and community engagement projects, we provide youth with life skills, communication, conflict resolution, emotional regulation, and goal setting. These programs strengthen self-esteem and a sense of purpose. When young people feel seen, supported, and equipped with positive values, they are far less likely to seek belonging in destructive environments. Prevention here is not abstract, it is practical and relational. So second, in Peru and several other Latin American countries, Women's Federation Japan has supported family strengthening and family reconstruction education programs. Many social problems, including youth crime and drug abuse, are closely linked to family breakdown, domestic violence, and integrational trauma. So our family education initiative work with parents and couples to rebuild trust, improve communication, and foster responsible parenting. When families become stable and nurturing, children gain emotional security and moral guidance. This stability significantly reduced the risk of youth involvement in gangs, drug trafficking, or substance misuse. In Peru, local leaders have observed that communities where family education programs were implemented show improved school attendance, reduced domestic conflict, and stronger community cooperation. These are essential protective factors against criminal behavior. Third, in Thailand, Women's Federation Japan has supported minority communities, including Karen ethnic groups who often face poverty, marginalization, and limited access to education. In such environments, young people can become targets of exploitation, trafficking, or drug-related networks operation near border areas. By supporting education, vocational training, and women's empowerment initiatives, we help create alternative pathways. When families have economic stability and access to learning opportunities, young people are less vulnerable to recruitment into illicit activities. Empowered mothers, in particular, become key protectors of their children, advocating for education, monitoring peer influence, and fostering resilience. Across these diverse contexts, Jordan, Peru, and Thailand, the principle remains consistent. Crime prevention begins with strengthening families, empowering women, and investing in youth. So drug prevention is not achieved solely through restriction. It is achieved through connection. It is achieved when a young person has a caring adult to guide them, a family that provides stability, a school that nurtures their potential, and a community that offers hope. Women's Federation Japan's overseas projects demonstrate that prevention must be holistic. By integrating value-based education, family support, women's leadership, and community development, we contribute to building environments where young people can thrive without turning to drugs or crime. As we continue our dialogue here at CND69, I hope our experiences affirm that sustainable drug prevention requires collaboration across sectors and borders. Families, civil society, governments, and international organizations must work together to strengthen protective system around youth. So protecting young people from narcotic drugs is not only a policy objective, it is a moral responsibility. So thank you so much.
Ms. Moriko Hori is currently in New York because there is the CSW and she is there present as well. So we come to our next speaker who is in the room. We are very happy to have a friend and colleague on our side, Ms. Karen Petters from UNODC. PTRS is Prevention, Treatment and Rehabilitation Section. And also 2 days ago I listened in how many countries you are active. I think it matches our Women Federation, so we're very grateful that we're here today. And Ms. Peters will speak about these intersections of vulnerabilities and what kind of projects UNODC is implementing. Please, Ms. Peters.
Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you so much to the Women's Federation for World Peace for always inviting us to speak at your side events. It's always a great opportunity to connect with other organizations that are doing great work on prevention. So yes, as I've been introduced, this is my area that I focus on. The section that I work for, of course, also deals with treatment for drug use disorders and access to controlled medicines for medical purposes. Okay, but the area that I focus on is on drug use prevention, and being the Office on Drugs and Crime, we very often see how the mandate on drugs intersects with that of crime prevention. And indeed, we cannot really separate the two out. So it's also important to acknowledge that some of these components are overlapping. As Ms. Hori mentioned, of course, she's really given us a great foundation for the discussion today, actually. this intersectionality. And so let's dig a little bit deeper and see what is it that we speak about when we're talking about intersecting in vulnerabilities. If we can go to the next slide. So again, this is not something that you haven't heard, and I think a lot of people can agree that there are vulnerabilities that individuals face, that young people face at different levels, okay? There are vulnerabilities at the individual level, at the family level, at the community level, and also, of course, systemic vulnerabilities within the society. We see these levels through the lens of what we call socio-ecological lens. Okay, if we look at these vulnerabilities through a socio-ecological lens, there's certain areas that we have more influence over, and there's other areas that we have less influence over. So if you look at individual being immediate, familial being secondary, then the community being another sphere of influence, and then the system of society being another. It's much more easier to influence at the individual, at the personal level. Sometimes a little bit easier to influence at the familial level. It takes a little bit more resources and mobilizing to influence at the community level. And at a systemic level, this is, I would say, the longer challenge, right? But what do these barriers actually look like? It was mentioned, and it's very often discussed around brain development, right? So brain development, young people's brains are not yet fully developed. We consider that in the realm of biomedical factors, right? So I cannot control that my brain develops at a specific, the way that a human brain develops, okay? But it is important to know that what happens during that period of brain development might influence vulnerability later in life. But again, it's not a predictor. So there are many people that have come from adverse childhood experiences or have overcome adverse childhood experiences and not develop drug use disorders later in life, okay? So we cannot just say that influencing brain development or making sure that a person has a specific environment for their development growing up is the only factor. At this point in our understanding of drug dependence and problematic drug use, we consider a biopsychological and social approach. So the biomedical, which is the physical, physiology, the genetics, the makeup, the medical vulnerabilities. There's also the psychological vulnerabilities, and there are social vulnerabilities. And so in the same way, when we're looking at vulnerabilities, we have to understand what these are in order to really address our prevention in a targeted way. So at the family level, of course, we have family dysfunction or instability. Again, I'm just caveating this because this is not a predictor of problems later in life. And I don't want us to stereotype people that have come from these backgrounds or have had these experiences. They might indicate a level of vulnerability, but they are not predictors of dependence. Okay, but again, because of that, this is why it's important for us to really have a good understanding of vulnerability. If you have a caregiver with a drug use disorder, again, not a predictor, but it does have an element of vulnerability, particularly if the person is not not thriving with their use of drugs. They're having other concerns, social, medical, psychological, when there's neglect or violence in the home. Of course, at the community level, if you have the child that's involved or there's a vulnerability towards involvement in trafficking, if there's the lure or the availability of getting or achieving quick income, or perception of impunity. So like it doesn't really matter if I'm involved in crime or drugs because the society at the community is, everyone in my community is somewhat involved in something related to criminal activity. or poverty or unemployment. Again, like I said, not predictors, but levels of vulnerability. And of course, then at the systems level, does the young person have access to education or employment pathways? Is there an absence of prevention services? Is there inequality? Is there injustice? Is there racism? Is there sexism? These are inequalities that the person would have as a barrier towards achieving a good holistic life and a holistic lifestyle. So this is the reason that we emphasize looking a little bit closer at the vulnerabilities, because it helps us to understand what we can do about it. So if we go to the next slide, just to reiterate, there are some researches that have been done that are looking at why young people get involved in either drug trafficking or criminal activities or engaged in crime. And very often we want to say that because drugs are available in the community, this is why young people start using drugs. Or because they are forced into drug trading or dealing, this is why young people start dealing in drugs. No. This is where we look and we can actually see the systemic vulnerabilities that are leading to the perpetuation of other involvements in crime and drug use and negative social behaviors. There was a research that's done, and you can find it, I think, on the UNODC website. It was not done by the drug team and not by the prevention team. It was done around trafficking at border communities within the Southeast Asia region. And Ms. Hori mentioned this specifically. She was talking about crime and criminal activity at the border areas. They interviewed villagers that lived in those border communities, and they tried to understand why people would get involved, or what would lead somebody to be involved in crime or violence or criminal activities, illicit activities in the border areas. And one of the outcomes of the research, there are many, was that 70 to 90% said that there was economic hardships. They were challenged. They didn't have access. There was no way for them to earn money. Now you also have to remember the places they were interviewing, and the people that they were interviewing were in more rural communities. They did not have a lot of access to major employment markets, major employment hubs. So for a lot of people, it was purely economic. There's a study, or there was a research done by France at the community level. They had implemented a framework around drug trafficking and drug trafficking and distribution prevention in certain communities, and they also identified that some of the key drivers was low self-confidence or school failure, that they also had limited employment prospects. Okay, and then again, I don't want to get into too much, but there's another phenomenon occurrence that happens in the UK called county lines, where young children are recruited into criminal networks to traffic drugs across counties, either by force or by exploitation. And they had, and understand that they had experienced trauma. About all of those children that they had studied that were involved in that activity, that were forced there, had also somehow been exposed to trauma before they were involved or exploited by criminal networks. Okay, so and this has led them to vulnerability, debt, bondage, intimidation. The list goes on. And just to reiterate that, yes, the connection between what makes a person vulnerable and what makes them vulnerable and start engaging in criminal activities also overlap, right, for both drugs and crime related activities. Let's go on. I will try to be faster in the next slides. I know there's lots. Okay, so just to iterate, and again, please go and read more about this if you want to know about UNODC. We've developed what we call the International Standards on Drug Use Prevention. And we have outlined all of the prevention activities that are effective for different age groups and in different settings. The stars would indicate the strength of evidence that we have on certain programs. Of course, the parenting skills programs have had the most amounts of research. It doesn't mean that they are better than anything else. It just means that there are more programs and they have been researched more. And of course, there's a list depending on what you need to influence. If you go on. If we do prevention programs according to what we're saying is science-based or evidence-based prevention, and this is not intuition-based prevention, it's not a creativity-based prevention, then we know for a fact that drug use prevention or prevention of drug use prevents other risk behaviors. So this is where the overlap happens. Because we are not focusing specifically on drugs, on substances, we're focusing on strengthening the resilience factors and reducing the vulnerability. And when we reduce those vulnerabilities that we discussed earlier and others, we have seen a reduction in mental health concerns, a reduction in violent behavior and delinquency, of course a reduction in substance use, improved school performance, and also less risky sexual behaviors amongst young people. If we go to the next slide. These are some of the interventions. You can also read up more about them on the UNODC prevention website. This is not an exhaustive list of interventions, by the way. Depending on your vulnerabilities that you are willing to address, you would need specific interventions. None of these interventions are specifically targeting, for example, somebody that already has a drug use disorder. So assisting them into treatment. This is on primary prevention. But that would also be something that would be important to consider. We go on. Okay, don't worry about that. These international standards, they have different stakeholders. We have had governments, civil society organizations, and policymakers that find them useful. There's another tool that we use is the review of prevention services. This is mostly at a prevention systems level, where we're looking at how do we understand what is missing in the prevention approach at a national or subnational level. And of course, we have an initiative that's called CHAMPS, which is Children Amplified Prevention Services, and it aims basically to integrate all of those interventions that are happening at different ministries, at different age groups that help children to have a healthy and safe development. So there's two things that we want to reiterate. It's really important that we encourage yourselves, people you work with, to invest in integrated prevention, and that we scale up the evidence-based prevention that happens. Not only UNODC tools, by the way, there's other tools that are evidence-based that are in the standards, and are not owned by UNODC, and they have nothing to do with UNODC. We're just highlighting that they work, but that evidence-based prevention is really the cornerstone of how we address our strategies for youth. I think that should be it. Yes. Thanks for talking too long.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jakes. It's so amazing and interesting for all of us to listen to. It's so important factors that you address. So thank you very much for being with us. The next speaker again is a lady who is going to be with us online, Sonia Valerie Turpo Mamani. She's the secretary from WFWP Women's Federation Center Domingo. This is why we also invited the Dominican Republic, the ambassador to be here.
Hello, I'm Sonia Turpo, wife and mother of 5 beautiful children. In 2014, I learned about the character education project in a diploma course organized by the Women's Federation for World Peace here in the Dominican Republic. As a graduate in social work, for me it was like finding a key to the problem of substance abuse, teenage pregnancy, and aggressive behaviour in adolescents from different educational centres. In the same year, in October, I decided to bring character education to different educational centres, whether primary, secondary, private and public. With the support of the Guidance and Psychology Department and the management team, We shared the problem and possible solutions. We decided to deliver the character education project once a week, organizing student groups according to age, course, and grade. Firstly, at the Francisco Alberto Camanodo Elementary School, we educate children aged 6 to 9 years old with story readings highlighting a value with the objective of strengthening a healthy coexistence in the family, at school and in the community, giving importance to the practice of living and living in values such as honesty, solidarity, compassion, generosity, responsibility, and humility. And with children aged 9 to 12, it is through slide presentations with clear concepts, images, and examples. For example, topics of life goals, universal principles, the purity of love, school, family is the school of love, etc. In secondary education, such as the Rudy Maria Comas Bautista High School, Belinda Tercero, the sacrificial ones, by teaching 1 day a week in different groups according to age and grade. For example, a group of students aged 12 to 15 years, we teach topics such as the need for character education, universal principles, life goals, causes and consequences, and conflict resolution. And in groups of students aged 15 to 19, we teach topics such as consequences and resolution and consequences of the sexual revolution, education for love and life, the ethics of love and sexuality, the abuse of toxic substances and its prevention. As time goes by and we continue to give these workshops and lectures, we notice significant changes. Between 2020 and 2024, there was a further significant reduction. However, there is a variant from 2024 to 2025 remaining at the same level, with a worrying and slight increase in these figures. According to the National Statistics Office, UNICEF emphasizes that the impact of teenage pregnancies and early unions not only affects their own lives but also the socio-economic development of the country. And it says that it is essential to intensify efforts to provide comprehensive sexual education and improve access to contraceptive methods and offer adequate health services. However, based on my volunteer work and experience, I can affirm that the Character Education Project is the most effective solution to the situation. With the Character Education Project, we can counteract these two problems: teenage pregnancy and substance abuse. For a population vulnerable to this situation, it is not enough to simply distribute contraceptive methods nor to confiscate toxic substances. Character education is a purely educational approach with the sole purpose of forming and strengthening values, social skills, and responsibility in children and adolescents, connecting the family, the school, and the community. By providing character education, we are promoting core values such as responsibility, respect, self-control, and conscious decision-making. And finally, I'm very grateful, deeply grateful, to the Women's Federation for World Peace of the Dominican Republic for giving me this opportunity to gain this wonderful experience. Thank you very much. Sonia Turpo.
I think video, Lily. There is another second video.
Yeah.
Very short one. He's a teacher saying thank you to much.
Hello, my name is Isidra de Rosa, psychologist of the Francisco Alberto Camano Daniel School, a school that is located in the Villa Linda sector of the Alcarrizos, in a very, very vulnerable population. We are pleased to share that the Women's Federation for World Peace, led by Mrs. Sonia Turpo, has been working with us for more than 5 years on a program called Character Education. They work on them by reading stories. This program has revolutionized our entire educational center, since those children to whom Sonia Turbo has been devoting those stories for more than 5 years have shown a very significant change in their behavior. We are very pleased to know that the Women's Federation for World Peace has been contributing its grain of sand for those children who are the future of tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we continue with the gentlemen and people who are here in the room. The next speaker is Mr. Rogers Kasirye. He's a PhD and director of the Ugandan Youth Development, executive director of this Youth Development Link. We have known each other since many years. We had a cooperation the last year with online teachings, and you are also an advisor of UNODC, and you're working with communities in the villages, and we're very impressed by your work. This is why we are happy that you're here today, and please share your experience.
Okay, thank you so much, Renate, and the team at the World Peace Federation for Women. They have asked me to talk about how do we create safe and healthy environment for young people. I want to give you, actually what I'm going to do is give you a case study from Uganda that our organization works with the young vulnerable slum girls. And I'm coming from a country, okay, seems I don't have next. I come from the country where 75% of the population of 50 million, 75% are below 30 years. My country also represents that those who are below 18 years are 55%. In other words, we have a big population of young people. And the challenges are many because, as you can see, our country is coming from a low, poor developing countries. The resources are never enough. And what will happen is that you are likely to see a lot of unemployment, you are likely to see a lot of poverty, you are likely to see many young people living in vulnerability, adversities, and a little bit of challenge. If you can move the cursor. Many of our young people, unlike in Europe and in America, are out of school. They are not in school. In other words, if young people were in school, they will get a lot of information how to keep safe. And they also learn about many of these programs, but the young people are out of school. And we see a lot of teenage pregnancies, early reunion, giving early birth. The young people we serve, many of them have gone through early abuse, early separation. There are a lot of movements. Many of the young girls work as nannies and maids. Those who have matured now are migrating to Middle East. Because a lot of young people go to the Middle East because the government resources are not enough to do that. And also health services are very limited health services. So we have a challenge of survival. Now you have an NGO going to work with the young people in the slums because we see a lot of survival sex, commercial sex, sex work, and all that. And then young people are trying to survive. And here is an NGO saying, no, it is not safe, don't use alcohol, drugs are going to do. There's HIV/AIDS, you can get pregnant. Then there's the challenge of survival. How do you help young people with all these challenges and give them the healthy message? Like CIC said, most of the factors in the family structure collapse, which led to early separation, which led to early abuse, young people migrating to being trafficked, domestic trafficking, and work. And now here they are in the bars, here they are in the ghettos, and involved in survival sex. So it's a little bit challenging. It's a little bit challenging, and a little bit like she said, you do a lot of, if you are going to increase access, you do a lot of individual screening to understand the vulnerability in terms of the trauma. You have to deal with if there is a suicide ideation, if there is, you also need to know whether that young person has some skills which can help her to earn money so that she doesn't get involved in risky survival activities. And once you have screened, then you begin to say, what can you do? In other words, we are talking about comprehensive services. Some of the services will be with you. The other services will be provided by another organization. The government also provides some sketchy services. All these have to work together in order to deal with the young person. Because the young person does not present one problem. She presents the problem of being homeless. She presents the problem of survival. She's also got pregnant. She has nowhere to go. Sometimes you may have even to withdraw them, take them to a facility for temporary adjustment and transition to readjust and see. It is normally easier if the young person has not stayed longer in the slums or in the streets. If she has stayed longer, then she becomes hard. You do more to rehabilitate and more to support. So, thanks to the efforts, thanks to the UNODC is supporting our crime risk program. They are supporting us for 5 years, where we are reaching out to young people about messages of crime, messages of how really you can rehabilitate. And many young people are being diverted, and also we are getting a lot of withdrawal. But also support to UNICEF. We are also getting support. If you could move the slides down, let me try it. The click. So we are showing some of the teenage mothers. Many young girls are getting, because there has been no information. There are people out of school. So there's a lot of teenage mothers. If you could move the slide, I'll be able to. You have to do a lot of mobilization. Some of the activities for out of school, you have to do them to mobilize young people and do group sessions, do group activities, do role play, so that you are empowering them with life skills, but also to appreciate they can change and they can be part of the change of the system. And skills which take short term. They don't want long-term skills like tailoring. Tailoring will take a lot of time. They want to do cookery. They want to do hairdressing. They want to do pedicure and manicure, which can give them quick money and all that. And in order for them to survive, because once you complement that with hairdressing, cookery, and all that, then they're able to move away from risky behavior. By then, moving is very gradual. You don't say today I talk to you, move away, because you're still having a challenge of survival, a challenge of the home. Then she has a kid somewhere, she has relatives which are waiting. It is gradual. It is gradual to move away from the risky behavior and come in the environment where you are improving the protective factor. Sometimes you have even to involve young people themselves, because the young people want you to do something for themselves. The young people, they are the ones to talk to their friends, to show them that actually, if I move away from this situation, I can be better in this situation. So it involves young people becoming peer educators, peace ambassadors, who can share the message, and then the young people will appreciate. Actually, young people will appreciate more from a fellow young person than me, a social worker who knows everything. Who knows everything. You move down. Move down. Okay. So in summary, reaching young people, I think the first item, you can give the info. I'm almost there. 1 minute. You can cross. I want to summarize this in 4. Young people's participation in things which are going to change them. Involvement, not only giving information, but actual empowerment. Two, we are using a lot of alumni, the former beneficiaries, who have changed and who are good role models, themselves to come and influence their friends and take on an extra young person and support another young person. Three is that you cannot do one activity alone. You have to do awareness, you have to do livelihood, you have to do behavior change, you have to involve parents. So it's not a one direction. You have to use a variety. And lastly, one thing we have learned is that surprisingly, even when they are in vulnerability, they are in problems. Not all of them are bad as many times we think. Some of them have their own skills of survival. By the way, they can cope very well even without social workers. So you have to build on what they know, on what they have. Don't assume because they are vulnerable they know nothing. No, they can manage to survive. So thank you very much. I hope that it shows you very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear Rogers, for sharing. This is an impressive example of how we can do and help to change things in the community. Thank you so much. And everybody can talk to each other after the meeting. Now we move on to a young man, another young man, young colleague, Mr. Laurenc Klas from IAYSP. This is International Association for Youth and Students for Peace. It can be applied everywhere. He comes from Slovakia and he's spoken as a Slovakian. And he will present his program. We are always very inspired by it. So please.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And so good morning, respected ladies and gentlemen. As mentioned, my name is Laurenc Klas and I'm from Slovakia. And it's a great honor for me that I can present about IAYSP, the International Association for Youth and Students for Peace, in this context, and especially its activities in Europe and Middle East. That's what UME is. Next slide, please. I think skip one.
Skip one, yes.
So the IAYSP was founded in 2017 in South Korea by Dr. Hak Ji-han, and her being originally from North Korea, she had to escape to the south together with her mother and grandmother at the age of just 7. And during that time, she experienced firsthand the horrors of the Korean War. And since then, together with her late husband, Simon, they dedicated their lives to peace building. And especially one core concern for them was young people and to encourage them to fulfill their potential, become bright leaders of the future, and by that not get swayed by destructive lifestyles, for example, drugs, as is the topic today. And next. So IAYSP is spread across many countries in Europe and the Middle East, but also then globally. As mentioned, starting point was South Korea. And one important milestone to mention was receiving the special consultative status at the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations in 2022. So next. Concerning our vision and mission statement, we envision that every young person on this planet experiences that their contribution matters for peace. And this is important because many times the sentiments that there are among young people is that, I cannot do anything, or I'm too small, I cannot influence anything. But we want to spread the message that every single one of us can contribute to the world and make a change. And this is an important point, I think, also for today's topic, and I will come back to that later. So, next. So just shortly about how we work. IAYSP implements its mission with a broad range of activities, for example, peace education, learning and trainings, so-called peace designer trainings, and then personal and leadership development, and all from smaller community projects to large-scale forums and conferences. And especially we promote intercultural events and cooperation, bringing people from different backgrounds together. Next. And then the core of how IAYSP functions is actually our strong local and national chapters in different regions, countries, and that's where the majority of the actions actually happens, and where the vision is brought among the youth. As you can see also, I wanted to just mention, there were some pictures from different countries, and for example, I was participating in a service project in Czech Republic, but let's move on, there's not so much time. Then there's also bigger international events, for example, this Balkan International Youth Summit for Peace, which took place last September in Mitrovica in Kosovo, which is a central place of the ethnic conflict present on the Balkans, as you know. And it gathered around 130 young people from 30 countries. And then another one where I personally was a part of was the Peace Cup held in Prague last year, and it was an international sports tournament that gathered around between 150 to 200 young people from across Europe, and the goal was mainly to really bring together young people based on sports. And yeah, as mentioned, I was there personally, and it was really a great experience. Helped also with volunteering, but also could participate by playing football, and it had really a great atmosphere. And I'm happy that actually the preparations for this year's edition are already ongoing. Next. Then shortly about two initiatives which were sponsored by the European Union actually through its Erasmus Plus program. And the first is Innovate Peace, which was a project running for 15 months through the cooperation of IAYSP, together with the University of Tetovo in North Macedonia and the organization CARP in Romania, and basically through events and peace designer trainings across these countries, young people were empowered to become peace builders themselves by applying a principle called design thinking. And then the other event initiative was the Youth Democracy and Digital Advocacy Program, which was a around 1 week youth exchange happening in Vienna, bringing young people from 5 countries together. And now the flagship project of IAYSP is the so-called Peace Designer Training, and which is a guided program for young people to prepare, create and then implement their own peace projects aligned with the UN SDGs. And during that, participants learn techniques to identify issues in their surrounding, and especially dig deep to find the root causes, the real root causes behind these issues, as well as then practical skills to manage and prepare projects. And then maybe next we can see a little bit some pictures. For example, at the bottom right, that one was actually happening here in Vienna. And just 2 weeks ago, there was a Youth Change Makers Forum here at the UN office, and there also three participants actually presented their own projects that they made through this peace designer training and that they successfully implemented them. Yeah, so the next. Coming to a conclusion, I want to connect it more to today's topic. Because basically the goal of these peace designer trainings is for the participating young people to truly experience that they can make an impact and contribute to an actual change to the better for their surrounding. And as mentioned also with the vision statement, many young people can get stuck in this state of resignation, like being hopeless and so on. And exactly these kind of feelings, like not having any hope or any purpose, low self-esteem because I don't see really how I can contribute or do something. These factors can really also help or kind of contribute to these young people then being more vulnerable, right, to these risky, dangerous lifestyles involving drugs, crime, and so on. And just maybe to also address some emptiness that they have within themselves. And this is something that IAYSP really wants to tackle through this approach. And for example, through these peace designer trainings, as mentioned, they can really feel that they have the power to make the world around them a better place. And in general, volunteering, contributing, and serving others, they usually feel one with positive energy, improved self-esteem and confidence, because one can see that actually one can really make an impact. I can really make an impact on my surrounding, the lives of others, and also these activities, they nurture a resilient character to be stronger. And I think this is really also a step in contributing to prevention. And furthermore, then YSP has this broad approach with the values, the right values, responsibility, integrity, service, and empathy that can be really used as a foundation for people to really grow their character and being like this, let's call it peace-loving citizens who really contribute. And then also the peace perspective, which has these three levels, like individual, societal, and then the environmental, which really the core message is that peace starts with me, myself. I'm the starting point. And that's something that I always can change, I can do something about. So with this approach, I think that also YSP can really contribute. And I mean, from personal experience, serving others, doing something for others, it never gave me like a bad feeling or something. So it always gave me something positive. It gave me a positive energy, which then made myself stronger in many situations. So I think this is really something that YSP can help with also in this area. And that was what I wanted to share in this context of this meeting. Thank you very much.
For being here and who wants to be connect after the meeting, you can talk to him or talk to us if he is ready to quickly. Now we have a very interesting project. I'm sorry, the time is getting short, but maybe people are not waiting outside. This is a project in Cenaculo. This is actually Maria Riehl. She's a medical doctor. She learned about this project, and we like it because some people make it, but some people get on the wrong way, and how to get them back again. And this is really heartwarming to know about this project. So we want to invite you, Mr. Pater Schwarz, and his friend, Mr. Binger, to present, and one is to translate for the other, because the language is not so easy. So please, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, my name is Mikołaj. I'm 20 years old and I'm in community Cenaculo 2 years. I come from a good Polish family. I was well educated in a spirit of a Christian faith. But honestly, since I remember, I had a certain sadness inside of me. I always was looking for something, some joy of life, some satisfaction. I tried many activities, many interests, but unfortunately I couldn't get it. I remember I was always a closed boy inside. I was full of insecurities. When I got older, I went to a high school. I started to escape from myself, from my family, from my problems. And I met the wrong friends, wrong persons. And I fell into the drugs. I fell into the alcohol problems. I lived in that sadness, in that desperation for a year. And thanks to a huge help of my family, I encountered community Cenaculo. And at the beginning I struggled a lot. It was so difficult to accept my situation, to survive. But after some time I discovered a new life, a true joy of life in the simple things of a daily life. I discovered what is a true friendship. I left my egoism that was always in me. And I rediscovered the faith because I learned it at house, in my family, but I left it. I didn't practice it. And in community I discovered that prayer is what really gives me a true peace inside of me. And now I'm really grateful that I can be here, that I received a hope from a community, and that now I can look into my future in a positive way. Thank you.
I'm sorry, not speak English. I'm George, come from Austria. My friend translate. You come from Poland, from Austria, e speak Italiano. La comunità viene dall'Italia.
The community comes from Italy.
Ed è fondato da una suora, Maria Elvira.
È stato fondato da una
Inglese.
I'm sorry. It was founded by a sister, Mother Elvira, in Italy.
È una donna innamorata della vita.
She was a woman that was in love with life.
Quando sei innamorato nella vita desideri che tutta la vita sta bene.
When you are in love with a life, you want all words that is good.
E lei ha sofferto tanto perché ha visto tanta tristezza al mondo.
She suffered a lot because she saw a lot of sadness in the world.
E lei ha detto: devo tirarmi sulle maniche, devo fare qualcosa.
She said, I have to do something.
È tutto quello che fate anche voi.
Everything what you are doing every day.
E la migliore risposta di tirarsi sulle maniche è fare qualcosa di nuovo, bello.
It's the best thing that you can do to push yourself and start doing something beautiful.
Quando guardo la mia vita, io sono stato alcolizzato tanti anni.
When I look at my life, I was alcoholized many years.
E ho pensato che questo è il mio destino.
I thought that this is my destiny.
Invece in comunità ho scoperto mia vita è un dono.
But in community, I discovered that my life is a gift.
Non ho mai pensato che mia vita è un dono.
I've never thought that my life is a gift.
Perché in comunità ho imparato a non guardare solo i difetti, i problemi. In comunità ho imparato a non guardare solo il negativo, i difetti, i problemi.
In community, I learned not to look only at defects and negativity.
E Madre Elvira ci ha insegnato a guardare cosa puoi fare di bello della tua vita.
Mother Elvira learned us to look for something beautiful that you can do of your life.
Accendere la creatività dell'uomo.
To ignite the creativity of a human.
Come lui l'ho visto entrare così.
Like him, I saw him when he entered.
Nico, vai, come stai?
Nico, how are you?
E lui.
And he,
E adesso sta
and now
sorridendo.
he smiles.
Perché il nostro vita è molto semplice.
Because our life is really simple.
Io credo in una vita semplicissima.
I believe in a really simple life.
Noi viviamo insieme,
We live together.
cucinare,
We
fare l'orto,
we do garden.
fare il pane,
We do bread.
fare la pizza
We do pizza.
e giocare a pallone.
We play football together.
E non abbiamo assistenti sociali.
We don't have social assistance.
Siamo tutti venuti dalla caduta del tenebre.
We all came from darkness.
Alcol, internet,
Alcohol, internet.
siamo peccatori pubblici,
We're public house sinners
da mattina di sera.
from the morning to the evening.
Ma questa non ha ultima parola.
But this doesn't have the last word.
L'amore vincerà.
The love will win.
Io credo in questo.
I believe in it.
È mia frase,
And
la
my phrase,
è mia preghiera preferita.
my favorite prayer,
Caro Dio, fai un mondo migliore,
dear God, make a better world.
ma inizia da me.
But start with me.
È unica che abbiamo in mano tutti.
That's the thing that we can all do.
Quando vogliamo sempre cambiare gli altri,
When we always want to change the others,
la vita diventa amaro, diventa giudico.
the life becomes bad because.
Invece i giovani vogliono vedere la bellezza della vita.
But the youth want to see the beauty, how beautiful is life.
Ma non sono le cose,
But these are not things,
non sono le
material.
cose.
These are not things.
E la gioia viene da di dentro.
The joy comes from the inside.
La gioia viene da di dentro.
From inside.
Quando ti senti perdonato,
When you feel that you're forgiven.
quando hai un buon amico vicino,
When you have a good friend close to you.
allora tu cammini insieme.
You walk with him.
E quando io cammino,
When I walk,
io ho 30 giovani con me a
I have
casa,
3 of you with me in my house.
io non posso cambiare nessuno,
I can't change anybody.
e posso cambiare io.
I can change myself.
E quando lavoro su di me,
When I work on myself,
anche intorno a me,
also around of me.
e questo è il segreto di ogni una famiglia.
That's the secret of every family.
E quello succede nel piccolo dentro,
And it happens inside.
e succede anche nel Stato, nel mondo.
And also in the world.
La guerra
The war
inizia nel mio cuore,
starts in my heart.
quando giudico,
When I judge.
quando odio,
When I hate.
quando non vedo il bello,
When I don't see it beautiful.
quando sono geloso.
When I'm jealous.
Invece, quando inizio a guardarmi dentro,
But when I start to look in my inside
con verità,
with the truth,
fa a volte un po' male,
sometimes it hurts.
ma non dobbiamo sempre togliere la sofferenza subito.
But we can't escape from a suffering instantly.
Perché voler togliere la sofferenza è la droga.
Because this is also drug.
Prima della droga, prima della dipendenza c'è il cuore triste e arrabbiato.
Before the drug, before addiction, there is a heart that is angry.
E quindi dobbiamo lavorare sulla parte umana dentro.
So we have to work on our human part inside.
Allora i giovani ritornano alla bellezza della vita.
So youth come back to the beautifulness of life.
E noi viviamo questa vita semplice,
We live this simple life.
ogni tanto preghiamo un po',
Sometimes we pray a bit,
ogni tanto ci scontriamo,
sometimes we have the conflicts,
ma dopo diciamo scusami,
but at the end we say sorry.
Mazzino. Desideriamo
That's our dream.
con un giovane che è triste e arrabbiato uno troppo.
That each one youth that is sad is one too much.
E io desidero che tutti scoprano la tua vita è un dono.
And I dream about it, that everybody discovers that your life is a gift.
E credo che in un mondo così,
I believe in a world like that,
dove ci sentiamo amati,
where we feel loved,
si sta bene insieme.
you feel good together.
Anche se siamo diversissimi,
Even if we are completely different,
però l'amore vincerà.
but love will win.
Ma non è l'amore di carezza,
But it's not this kind of
è
love.
l'amore concreto
It's concrete love,
della vita quotidiana.
the daily life.
Io ringrazio per questo invito.
Thank you for being
E
invited.
ringrazio di tutte queste belle
Thank you
testimonianze.
for all your beautiful testimonies.
Ringrazio la bambina
Thank you.
perché mi fascina quanto è brava e bella,
It fascinates me how beautiful she is
come interessato a
and
tutto.
interested in everything.
Chi sarà domani?
Who knows who
Thank you very much. Thank you that you're here and for this beautiful testimony that you give and for the beautiful work that you're doing. And now we just jump off again geographically, but actually in a very similar way. We are very grateful that Mr. Brother Paul is here and he lives in Kenya and works in surrounding countries. And now you have to please.
Thank you so much. I know it's already past time, so I think I'll just have to give just a few minutes. I get a lot of inspiration from my friends here because I'm also lived experience, and to be here is really a miracle because my life was affected by drugs for 7 years. You can go to the first slide, and
This slide.
please let's move. Okay.
Slide
So-
for you.
So,
Yes.
so the Sober Life Initiative started in 2007 when I was at the university, USIU, in Nairobi, after going through a period of drugs, and I felt the call also to support young people who are going through the same situation. In Africa, maybe the factors for drug initiation are a bit different from the West. For us, it's more of the conflict of lifestyles. We are born in a very conservative family, religious, traditional, and suddenly, all of the West is with us here, and we feel it's more liberal, it's more freestyle. So, transiting from one lifestyle to another, many of the young people we ended up getting into this kind of lifestyle. But then when I was able to come out from that lifestyle, and then started a volunteer initiative, so then to impact other young people who are going through the same. So we have a vibe that everyone needs a confident in life, who appreciates our abilities and understands our challenges, one who is ready to offer valuable, caring, and enduring support. And I'm sure this is the kind of people that can offer that kind of support to the community. Let's go. Yes, so education in prevention. I won't have to go through that because it has been repeated over and over, just what it entails to do education in prevention, but more especially in this complex world we're living in is establishing proactive conversations with the young people, motivating the young people to know their value, to know their potentials, and inspiring them to make full use of the opportunities. Let's continue. So we have the school-based interventions. We won't have to go through that, life skills and all the challenges that are affecting the young people today. Let's continue. We have the university. This is especially very passionate for me because this is where I was at the climax of my drug use and in the same place that I was able to exit. So I have a lot of passion and interest in the university because that's mostly the initiation period, especially in the African population. So we help the young people in university to manage the campus life shocks and also the accompanying stress. And this helps in delaying initiation and also recovery for those who are at the initial stages of drug use. Let's continue. Okay, I won't have to speak so much about this, but there's a conflict between the young generation, the Gen Zs and the Alphas, and those who are born pre-80s, 70s back. There is a big conflict of ideology, of approach to life, and therefore we have what we call the Building Bridges initiative to try to, just to bring a common ground, how the parents can appreciate the young people, and the young people can also appreciate the moral values and maybe the lifestyle ideologies of their older parents. So let's continue. And then this is also very key, and I'm so glad that right here with Rogers we have a project that is ongoing, the Last One Voices for Change project in East Africa, that is to bring more voice of the young people at the grassroots level, and that their voices and their issues and their ideas about how they can work in the field of prevention can work, because once we have youth-led initiatives, they're more impactful and more efficient, more than just bringing in ideas that are brought from outside and maybe don't work in the local context. So let's continue. So we also have these interventions and economic empowerment. And Sober Life has been involved in some projects in Congo, in Zimbabwe, that have literally changed the economic lifestyles of the young people. As we say, this is one of the triggers of why young people are initiated, because of poverty, because of idleness, because of just lacking something to do, meaningful engagement. We also have interventions in the hardship areas. Africa has very hard areas that really face a lot of challenges throughout the year, socially, naturally. If you look up there, this is a place in Ethiopia where their main economic, I would say, investment is in marijuana. So this is a huge area in southern Ethiopia, and actually where they believe that is heaven. Some of you have heard about the Rastafarian movement. So they have their heaven in Ethiopia, and the town, thrives on, drugs and especially marijuana. And therefore we make intros to go and talk to the young people, because they don't go to school. Once they are maybe teenagers, they start this kind of business. We also do the spiritual awakening and reconnection. I'm so glad for my brothers here said they are also using this approach. And in Africa, it's not just about maybe telling people to go to church, it's also dealing with some of the issues, traditional, radical beliefs that even sometimes promote drug abuse. There's the issue of witchcraft, thoughts about curses, and some rituals that they believe if you take certain drugs, certain, like when you smoke or you drink some, whatever, it takes away the curses. So it's a very radical ideology, culture, that unless you know how to approach, then you cannot have inroads to the people. So we partner with the religious groups and, incorporation of awareness, and especially youth-based approaches that can make the people love to come to the places that they can be given spiritual awakening and spiritual motivation. And this was also actually in other places, not only in Africa. I've been facilitating some youth camps here in Europe, in the UK, and it's so good because it's also bringing a lot of international perspectives on how we deal with things in different places. And I think this should be the last one. Is it? Okay, recommended teamwork, policy adjustment, resource expansion, especially to help upscale our abilities to reach more people, research, and how we can have more evidence-based approaches. And of course, life skills and entrepreneurship and investments to just help the economic and development among the communities that we deal with, especially the hardship and disadvantaged communities. And finally, yes, prevent and don't promote. That is always our standard.
Thank you very much, and we really want to thank all of you that you're here, active or listening. We are very grateful that so big an audience is coming. So please make sure you have your email if you want to be connected with one of us. And if you like to talk with each other, please do so. But we have to leave the room for the next. Yes.